We're live. Hey, a little bit of duct tape. All right. From
You
the
can
top.
prob you can probably anticipate that a lot of tonight's episode is going to be me and Michael saying, "Are we live? Are we still on? Is anybody watching us? Can they still see us?"
Oh, that's tremendous.
Welcome to our first live episode of Learn Your Stripes, and thanks for joining us. And we appreciate your patience, as well as hopefully your understanding and the fact that we're going to have some issues, almost certainly technologically tonight. We will do our best to get through this, but we appreciate you for joining us. The chat should be open. If you have questions for us, you can ask us questions about plays, about officiating, about mechanics, about life in general. You can ask Michael about questions about how you deal with officiating while dealing with a bunch of children. You can ask me questions about, I don't know, throw it out there. Michael and I thought we would take tonight to talk about things like politics, religion,
Naturally.
talk about the big movies of the summer, which brings us to one of our first questions. One of our first questions was, what are your reviews of the Oppenheimer movie as well as Barbie? And I have to say, for me, the issue with Oppenheimer was it really showed us both the ingenuity of people as well as the evil that can come both in things that were created by Oppenheimer in terms of the forces working against them. As for Barbie, I thought it was a great movie. It was fun to watch. It was well made, well acted. But I think by the end of the movie, one of the things that we saw is that despite what Aqua intoned to us circa 1997, life in plastic may not actually be fantastic.
It was a long way to go to the well, but that was worth it.
So that'll get us started tonight. But again, we thank you for being here. And we're going to get started with our first question of the evening as well. I know JP Patterson just asked us if this is a pledge drive. We can certainly make it so. I can put my Venmo out there as well as my PayPal. Anyone who wants to just send me a bunch of money, I will not say no to that by any means. I doubt Michael would either.
Nope. That'd be just fine by me.
But we'll get into our first few questions of the night as well to determine what we're going to be working with tonight. And so, Michael, I know that you've been looking at the mailbag, and I have as well. I know one of the first ones we wanted to look at was just starting from scratch. You're a brand new official. You're just getting into this. There is some investment involved, both in terms of uniform and equipment. So one of the first questions that we've received is, I want to become an official. What do I need to buy?
That's always the big one, and it's hard. Like with anything, you've got to invest to make your investment worth it. Obviously, pants and shirt are kind of primary. Different websites. We don't have any sponsors, but if they want to sponsor us, it'd be great. But Purchase Officials is probably my number one spot. Tire is another great spot. And the third one I've heard is Epic Sports, but a lot of them have starter packages. Last I saw, they ran for around $100 or so, and that'll get you shirt, hat, and pants. I don't think it gets you shoes, though. It might. But definitely start with a shirt and a hat. I actually saw this question in the mailbag, so I brought props. So in the high school world, basic yellow flag, that'll get you there, and a blue bean bag. Probably a couple of things you need to have started off. At the college level, we use black bean bags. Something else to consider. This is just kind of secondary. Ryan and I actually just used these last Friday. We have zip ties for our chains. Something handy to have there, but that's kind of like a second level thing. But as far as where to go and what to buy, and I don't remember who sent us the question, but if you want to follow up with us on an email, I've got a spreadsheet I put together that has all the items and approximate cost that'll get you started. But pants, hat, shirt, shoes, flag, and a whistle, that'll get you going. My recommendation would be don't buy everything at once. Although that's my usual problem. Ryan can attest to every August I have some brand new shipment come in, lots and lots of boxes. So buy one at a time, and as you get a game check, buy something else.
Yeah, I think that's useful advice. I'm going to go through right before we take the field every Friday. Our back judge, Daniel Huckstep, goes through a check down or checklist for us. So you need shoes. You could really use just black running shoes for officiating for the most part. Most schools have turf fields at this point. So I don't know that you necessarily need cleats or anything. Michael and I both use the turf shoes, but um, basic black running shoes would probably get you by for most of the season, if not all of it. um, a whistle, a flag, a beanbag, a hat, and then your shirt and pants and belt. And that would take you through it. And I think, as Michael said, one of those starter packs would be a really good idea. It's an efficient way of getting what you need. And then as you move along, if you want to upgrade to, specific, a fancier whistle, a different flag, whatever, you're able to do that as well. So I think that's the way to go. And a related question I know we've received in the chat from JP was, if you're a new official, how do you get connected to games? So I'll turn that to Michael to give some insight there.
Oh, I was lucky enough to get started through football. We had him on the show, Joe Stafford. I got connected with him through baseball into football. And again, we've talked about the IOA where we are locally. They have a class every summer that just ended. But if you're interested, you want to get going, we can get you enrolled for next summer, no problem. That's the easiest way to do it, is going to meetings. The class that we have offered here is 6 weeks, so that gets you kind of plugged in with lots of guys. And then from there, uh, if you talk to other officials in the area, see where they're going. A lot of times they'll let you tag along. That's kind of the first step to any of it. And then you kind of learn different assigners through that process. And Ryan, I don't know what kind of success you've had with it. I mean, I'm not an assigner, and I know that is a tough job to do in itself, and I know it's high stress, but it's important to know kind of who assigns in your area and just work with them.
Yeah, that's certainly a challenging job, and you want to keep your assigners and the people who can get you games pretty happy, I think, as we go along through this. One of the things that I did when I first started with our crew, um, you Drew did a lot of work scheduling games, but I would just, right after Thanksgiving every year, I would just email tons of schools saying, hey, we're a crew. Here's our schedule. Here's our open dates. We'd love to come work for your school. And we got a lot of games that way. And then as we've gone along and we've matured and we've just dealt with people more, sometimes schools would just ask us back after work there on a Friday, or we'll get, messages after the season is done, asking us to come back. So, that would be my first thing, is just to contact athletic directors as much as possible. A lot of them will tell you no, a lot of them will tell you your field, a lot of them just won't respond to you. But you'll get some games, and that's really how we really got going this way as well. So I think it's both get with your assigners, they'll start getting you some games. As far as crews getting games, start reaching out to schools to try to get some games as well.
And your reputation will build over time too, right? I mean, we've got to the point now where we're seeing coaches multiple times, and they want, if you do a good job, you put in the work, they want to have you back. The work will speak for itself.
Right. I mean, to a certain extent, we are at a point to where if we go to a school and we impress them as we expect to, and as we try to do so, they'll ask us back and ask us what our dates are after the game, which quite frankly is the person on the crew who works on getting games. That really makes my life a lot easier when they say, hey, here's some games for you, versus me having to reach out to them after the fact. We have another question that's come into our Gmail account, and for any of you who wish to reach us there, that's learnyourstripes@gmail.com. The question from Daniel is, what are some key signs or indications you are looking for to determine if offensive pass interference has occurred versus a clean run route? Do you want to start on that one, Michael?
The offensive pass interference?
Yeah, so what are you looking for to determine if a receiver is committing OPI versus if they're running a clean route?
The biggest thing is, and I'd heard this at a clinic this fall, was just officiating the hands. See what the hands are doing. They'll tell you the story and what's going on. You'll hear a term thrown around a lot of advantage versus disadvantage. the receiver knows where he wants to go, and the defender's trying to prevent him from getting there in as legal way as possible. But when you see normally an extension of a hand, or if the defender is kind of knocked off of his route, if he loses his balance, that's another thing to look for. I think the most common one you're going to see for OPI is usually on the goal line, in that bunch formation. It's weird having a screen now. We can use our hands and talk. This is nice. But you're going to have that bunch formation. That front receiver is usually going to try to drive the defender back, and somebody's going to try to come underneath. That's probably your most common thing that you're going to see.
Yeah, I think ultimately, whether it's OPI or DPI, what you're looking for is somebody being disadvantaged in terms of are their legs being taken away. So I know in our most recent game that we had, there's a lot of hand fighting that goes on as we're going along. But what you're looking for is, does that defender, is there something that the offensive player is doing that keeps the defensive player from making a play on the ball or from defending against that offensive player? And vice versa, as far as the question is worded, if you're looking for OPI, is there something that that receiver is doing that prevents the defensive back, the linebacker, the safety, whomever is defending him, from making a play on the ball? So for me, what I want to look for, Michael said, look at the hands. I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to look at the feet. If there's something that's just disadvantaging that defensive player, that's where OPI is going to come into mind. And then with Michael and I both being line of scrimmage officials, what we're going to look for as well is that pass beyond or behind the line of scrimmage. Because, of course, if it's behind the line of scrimmage, we're not going to have OPI,
right.
But it's incumbent upon us as line of scrimmage officials to have that information so that we can tell Daniel or whomever is making some decision there that that pass was behind the line of scrimmage, so we can't have OPI, or it was beyond. So if you're seeing offensive pass interference, that pass was beyond the line of scrimmage. So if you have a foul, then we could potentially have a penalty on this play because that pass was caught beyond the line of scrimmage. And any action by an offensive player that's illegal, whether it's a block downfield or a hold downfield, whatever it might be, we could potentially have OPI on that play.
I think if you're a deep too, whether your college was a deep wing or back judge or high school, either one, if you see something suspicious like that, go ahead and throw your flag. Say, hey, I have number 85 doing this, or whatever the case is. Where was that pass? Just come in and ask the question, right? Throw the flag, come in, ask the question to your line of scrimmage person and say, hey, was it beyond or behind? And if it was behind, like Ryan talked about, then we can pick it up. I think it's a little more efficient that way. I know it's an extra step. We're picking up a flag, but you'd rather have the flag down and at least draw attention to it. That way everybody's radar's up, and you can have a conversation from there.
Right. Yeah, it's fine for deep to throw the flag, then come to the line of scrimmage official and ask, was it beyond or behind? We need to know that information, and from there we can process, waive it off, or we're going to have that 15-yard penalty at that point in time. So that's on the crew to work together and piece together that information. At the high school level in 5-man mechanics, it's a little bit harder. At the college level, with 2 extra deeps, it may go a little bit quicker with, if my deep wing throws a flag and then can come to me or hit the radio or whatever to say beyond or behind, I can give them that information. We can make a decision pretty quickly. But with 5, it's probably going to be a little bit slower, but the principles there are all the same. I know another question that we've received that we want to go through this week is asking us about the 10-second runoff. So it's asking us to help explain or help somebody to understand how the 10-second runoff concept works. So I feel somewhat badly tossing to Michael to start all of these, but I'll toss this one to you, and then I'll take the next one to start with.
If we get the hang of this live stream, we'll bring some guests on live, and then we can bounce questions back and forth. Taking the 10-second runoff is applies obviously just at the college level. It's one that I struggled with, and I had to sit down with some of my crewmates last year, and what I did is I did a presentation on it, and I would highly suggest anybody struggling with a rule do a little 5-6 slide PowerPoint. that will force you to go through the rule book, find examples, ask questions, and just present it to a couple of your close official friends to help you get comfortable with the rule. And that's what I did with this 10-second runoff. So the crux of the rule is just to prevent the offense from trying to essentially gain an additional timeout by committing a penalty, that's a false start or something like that. I'll keep it brief because I know we got other questions to get through, but what you're looking for is a foul that stops the clock. So something like intentional grounding, or if we're at the line and we have a false start, something like that. It can get tricky if you have a penalty during the play, like a face mask or a horse collar tackle or a hold or OPI or DPI. The clock is stopped when the play's over, but that's just so we can administer that penalty. That doesn't really factor into the case of the zap because we don't have a foul. Well, I'm not saying there's none, but most of the times when we have a foul during a live ball play, that doesn't kill the play. The play continues on. So that's not where the advantage comes in for the offense. So it has to be a foul that stops the clock right away. And the second half of that is, do we have another action that also stops the clock? So if we had, that would be a helmet. Yeah, I'll go to helmet. We'll go to helmet. So if we have a helmet coming off, that would apply for a 10-second runoff or an injury, right? But if we achieved a first down, we've already stopped the clock, right? If we have or helmets coming off of opposing teammates, now we don't have a 10-second runoff. So those are the things that you have to think about. Reading Study Guide breaks it down beautifully. I highly suggest that book. Helped me out a lot. But that's a great question. Great question.
Yeah. So first and foremost, if you don't work college football, if you're only a high school football official, ignore all of this. The second part of this is that if you are a college official, then, Michael did a really great job there, and I'm not going to belabor the point at all. But the things you're looking for are fouls. You're looking for helmets off. You're looking for injuries. There's also a component where instant replay, if there's a play that's replayed that shows the clock should have been running, you could have a 10-second runoff. But for the most part, you're looking for a foul that immediately stops the clock. So clock's running, you have a false start. Clock's running, you have a defensive offside. That's one of those where we shut it down immediately. That's where you could have a 10-second runoff. And I think that makes sense because the 10-second runoff rule is designed to prevent an advantage, right? So let's say the offense is trying to hurry up. They're trying to score quickly. They want the clock to stop. So let's say they do something that causes the clock to stop that's illegal. That's where we're going to have a runoff. Now, again, it could be on the defense if you've got a helmet off, you've got a penalty that stops the clock. And so there's always an option there. So a team could choose, if there's a penalty that could have an enforcement that involves a 10-second runoff, the team could take the penalty and decline the runoff, but you can't take the runoff and decline the penalty. So if you're going to have the runoff, the play clock or the clock is going to start on the ready. If you decline the runoff, it's going to start on the snap. So depending what the score is, what the situation is, that's going to influence whether they're going to take the runoff or not there. But those are the instances where this is going to come into play. Let's say you have a team that gains a first down, even under the new timing rules. They gain the first down, but there's a hold. Well, the hold isn't what stops the clock. It's that first down that stops the clock. So we're not going to have a 10-second runoff there. You've got a helmet off on A, but you also have a helmet off on B. So we're not going to have a runoff because you've got situations that could create a runoff on both teams. And when that occurs, we're not going to have a runoff, right? Same thing with injuries. You've got injury on both teams, but throw in the same scenario, right? So you have let's say you have an incomplete pass and then an injury. Well, the incomplete pass stopped the clock, not the injury. So we're not going to have a runoff. You have a first down, then an injury. Again, that first down stops the clock, not the injury. So you have to think through in these scenarios, what is it that stopped the clock? Was it the foul? Was it the injury? Was it the helmet off? And if not, then we're not going to have a 10-second runoff as a possibility. And then if it was one of those scenarios, was it on A or B? Was it on both? And then if it was on A or B, is the opponent going to take it? And if not, think through what the clock status is at that point.
It's easy to get excited too, because a lot of times, we're obviously under a minute. Time is of the essence. The game's likely close. Everybody gets excited. But remember, ultimately, the clock has stopped. So we have all the time in the world to talk to coaches, get decisions, and figure out what we need to do from there. And again, make sure the 10-second runoff applies. If we're going to take time off the clock, we need to make sure that it actually applies. So it's a good question. It's a great one. We had another one that came through the Gmail. How do the new NCAA timing rules impact you? And Ryan, I think on our last show, we had like a slight leak that we knew it was coming down the pike, but I don't know. Being a short wing, how do the timing rules going to impact you now?
I guess the immediate impact is just sheer terror. The challenge that Michael and I have at our level is that we work D3 and NAIA. So NAIA is going to use the new rules. D3 will not. So we will potentially be in a scenario where we're going to be bouncing back and forth from one week to the next in terms of what timing rules we're using. So it's just a matter of being mindful of it. And the more I've done these in scrimmages, the more I think it becomes comfortable. I don't know if that's the right word, comfortable or natural, to just use it. So, it takes a little thought early on, but for the most part, 56 minutes of the game are exactly the same, and it's 4 minutes of the game that are going to be under different timing rules. So if you think of it that way, it's there's a comfort that comes through the game. The unfortunate part is it switches then at the last 2 minutes of each half, which are really among your most stressful moments. But it's just it's a repetition thing, and we've always said, Michael and I both said, take every advantage you can to get a scrimmage or a practice in the summer, because that's where you can really work on these things. You can get all the rust out of your system. And I found, despite my hesitations about this, the more I've dealt with them in practices and scrimmages, the easier it's been to deal with.
Yeah, thanks, practice for sure.
I know I also saw in the chat there was a comment from Vicky Moran saying hello. And just giving the names of the hosts of this show, I'm going to assume that may be a relative or somebody related to you there, Michael.
That is my mother. Hi, Mom. Thanks for watching.
Hello, Mrs. Moran as well. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for Michael.
Hey.
All right. Another question we've had come through, Michael, just asking us about our season so far. So I know we're not that far in at the college level. We've just been doing scrimmages and practices. In high school, we've had a scrimmage and a game. But from your perspective, how's your season going so far, Michael?
Oh, man, we had a great game last Friday. So it came down to the wire. One team was down, I think, 10 or 12 points going into the fourth quarter, and they made a wonderful comeback. It was fun to be a part of. The atmosphere was absolutely electric. Both coaches were terrific. Players were well managed and well disciplined, so we didn't have any problems there. And it was just a fun game to be a part of. Just an absolutely fun game to be a part of, and watching good football, good Friday night high school football. It was great. Can't say anything better. At the college level, it's like you said, it's just been scrimmages. So knocking the rust off. We did the clinic tours in April when we were off. We had our 6-month hiatus. We were doing our clinic tours. So we got to see different snaps there, different levels. And I'm just still riding this wave. I'm so excited and ready for next week.
Yeah, I echo Michael. We had just a fantastic game to start the season for the first week of the season. It was, I think the go-ahead score came with 6.4 seconds left, if I recall correctly.
Something like that, yeah.
It was you can't ask for a better scenario. I mean, when you do get into those running clock games that aren't competitive, it's just there's a point where everybody's just trying to get home at that point in time, right? You still want to be sharp. You still want to officiate it well, get all the safety fouls, but there's a loss of a competitive aspect of the game at that point in time.
It's hard to stay focused with those. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
but we had a game Friday where we just had to be focused every second of that game, and it was a lot of fun. Um, one of our officials, I want to just make a note that Daniel just texted me to note that we had a great post game meal at Waffle House, and we certainly did.
We
Um,
did.
we were in a pretty decently sized city in Indiana, but our game between cramping and it was a lot of passing, and so the clock was slow. So our game went most of 3 hours. So we were out of the locker room it was going on 11 at that point in time. And for whatever reason, there just wasn't a lot open at that point in time. But Waffle House sure was. So there were 5 seats at the bar there, and we pulled up at the bar, and I mean, bar in the sense of there was
Tabletop.
a
Yeah,
table with
tabletop.
5
Yeah.
chairs
Yeah.
across. But that was an awfully great meal that we enjoyed. And again, we've often commented that there's just a special aspect of being there with the other people in your crew, and just the kinship and the bonds that you build. And there's something about being in a different city at 11 o'clock on a Friday night where you're all starving and eating at Waffle House after running your butts off for 3 hours. That's a nice treat for one another. And we the week before that, we worked a scrimmage that involved 2 of the very best teams in the state of Indiana. So between those, and then, as Michael said, still knocking the rust off at the college level with scrimmages and practices, we've been awfully fortunate so far this year to have some good matchups to get us back in the swing of things.
I think for anybody new listening, I think JP's question about getting connected. Absolutely study the rules, study the mechanics. You never know when you're going to be called. My first game at the varsity level I was a line judge. I actually tore my hamstring too that first year. So I was moved to an umpire for another game. I worked a back judge. I think I made all the rounds. But know those positions, know the mechanics, know where you need to be. But if you have the opportunity to ride with guys to the game and after the game and go to a Waffle House or go to a B-Dubs or wherever you're going afterwards, go and just hang out, because that's when you start to get to know people. You develop that relationship. And what comes from that is the trust on the field. So I know when I'm working from Ryan, I know where he's going to be. When we've got a pass play, I know where Daniel's looking. And gosh, it feels like with Drew in the middle, he's able to put the ball down because he knows you are going to be there, and we don't have any problems. And we move and we flow. So spend that time afterwards with the crew or with whatever guys you're working with or gals, and just get to know each other. Makes working on the field so much easier, so much less stressful.
Yeah, I mean, there's really something special about the bonds that you build. Now, and we talk about this a lot, and I've mentioned already tonight, but the 5 of us on our Friday night crew, I mean, we text each other multiple times a day, and it's not often about
football. It's not all football related. That's going to be behind the paywall.
I mean, a lot of the times it's celebrating achievements that each other has. We push each other to work out and to get in good shape, and that's important. But it's life achievements. It's new jobs, family developments, those kind of things. It's a really special bond that we all have. And I think a lot of the really great crews around here, the 5 people on those crews at the high school level, or the 7 on the college crew, I think they develop those bonds as well. And as Michael said a little while ago, get to know people, ride along with people. The very first varsity football game I ever attended, I shadowed a crew where 2 of the members of that were two officials I know pretty well now, Scott Fisher and past guest Ross Hayden. And we were at Cambridge City Lincoln High School, and I rode with them out there, and it was a chance for me to watch them. And then the next season I joined our crew, and it's one of those the rest is history deals at this point. But crews will let you tag along if you're not attached right now, or even if you're not licensed, if you just want to go and see what it's about. Contact someone. Contact me and Michael, learnyourstripes@gmail.com. Contact anyone else who's an official. I'm sure they'll be happy to have you come along to a game and just experience that evening with them.
The IFOA website has a place if you're looking for crews to go to. We'll give
Right.
that a plug too. So, or if you're a crew needing somebody, you can go to the IFO website. So IFOA.
Yep. And I have found if you just Google IFOA, there's a few other things. But if you do IFOA football, it will tend to come up with the Indiana Football Officials Association's website.
Yep.
So that's a good way to get in there. Another question that we've had is just asking us some of the main mechanics differences for us between high school and college. And I know that's a bit of a broad question for us to deal with, but to be honest, the mechanics are awfully similar. Um, I will probably miss some here, but kickoffs are different for us on Friday nights in high school. I start on the 50. Michael starts on the 30, on the minus 30 for kickoffs. Whereas in college, we're both on the pylons. We're on the goal line with the referee. So that's kickoffs. On punts, on Friday nights as the line judge, I take off at the snap and I have to get back so I can move 30 to 40 yards depending on the length of a punt. Whereas at the college level, really we're trying to clear the action. And once the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, we to use the language of an official I respect a lot, Dave Green, we kind of do a hog jog for about 10 yards downfield. Now, the flip side of that is we're responsible for the goal line if they break a return. So you don't want to get too far downfield because you may well have to turn and just bust it to get back to the goal line. So kickoffs and punts are pretty different between the two levels. Scrimmage plays are pretty similar, really. The keys are a little different. But the main difference, I think, is if you're on the sideline of the team on offense, you have to announce substitutions when they come in at the college level, whereas on high school, obviously, we don't have substitution mechanics. And then as we get near the goal line, it's a little different. So in Indiana, we've talked about it before. From the 15 in as line of scrimmage officials, we're responsible for the goal line. In college is a very clear demarcation. The 7-yard line is when we go to the goal line. If we're outside of the 7, the deep winger is responsible for the goal line. We have the spot to the 2. Once the ball gets to the 7, we go to the goal line immediately on the snap. So I think those are the main difference. I guess one other is that at the high school level in 5-man, those of us who would be looking at the referee's back, whether it's me or Michael looking at JP's back on a certain kick, we go under the upright with the back judge.
We're shorter man. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So whereas at the college level, the field judge would go under the uprights with the back judge. And then the short wings just hold line of scrimmage at the college level. There's a mechanic where you take a step or two downfield on each kick, and then you come in after the kick is away. But I think that's largely the differences. But I am 100% certain I've missed something there, Michael. So anything else you have to add there?
I mean, we recently just covered our goal line mechanics a couple episodes ago, so that'd be a good one to revisit. We cover that all there. If you go back into the archives early on, our first, what was it? 5 or 6 episodes cover the entire Indiana mechanics manual for high school. All that's taken care of in there that we do. We might have to revisit that next year. 15 being the biggest one. I honestly, if you're working both levels or trying to break into college, I wouldn't get wrapped really tight around the axle about, am I in the right spot? Just let the play come to you, work the play. Like Ryan said, when you're working a scrimmage play as a line official, you're working the play. You're watching the tackle. It's a run play to your side. You're looking at blocks. Everything just plays itself out. And getting to those scrimmages that we talked about early in the season, you can get those snaps and those repetitions. I know last year when I was a deep wing, I would go to high school scrimmages that were happening in the summer when there weren't college scrimmages and just be a deep wing. I'd let my line of scrimmage person know, hey, I'm going to be down here, but I'll be out of your way. But try to replicate some deep wing experience, even at the high school level, just to get that view. That's a good way to do that too. But I think you covered it, Ryan. I think you got it all.
Great. Jenny, do you have anything else coming in the chat yet? Or are we still? No, I guess we're clear at this point. Then we will go back. Michael and I will dig deep into the learnyourstripes@gmail.com mailbag to our next question.
We had one about prepping for the week, didn't we?
Yeah, I think just sort of what our routine is.
How do you prepare for games when the temperature will be really hot? Ooh.
That's a very timely issue because this week looks
It's going to be
absolutely
hot.
awful. Since I'm from Louisiana, I've often made the joke that high school football is not as hot up here as it was for us, but this week's going to be a very different tune. I know the game we had this week, there were a lot of cramping issues for the players. And that's unfortunate. You never want that to happen, but I guess it's sort of one of those first week things. They're not really used to going full speed for that long or full speed against an opponent, just from summer practices and scrimmages.
Sure.
So that was a new aspect of it. But this week, the temperatures are going to be pretty close to 100 degrees, even up here in Indiana, late in the week, Thursday and Friday. So, Michael, how do you prepare as an official to get yourself ready to deal with those kind of conditions?
Beer and soda are out Sunday night through Friday night. I mean, folks can do whatever they want to do, and we like going out on Friday nights too, and on Saturdays at the college level too. We love doing that, and it's a lot of fun. But those you just got to be taking in water. Whether it's a Body Armor or a Gatorade, kind of pick your favorite one there. But I would halt the beer and soda from Sunday to Friday. It just makes me I feel better, and you just feel clearer. Get some time acclimating outside too. So if it's going to be hot, take some walks. If you can get away from your desk or whatever your job allows you to do, if you can get away for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if you're lucky, or lunch break, just spend some time walking outside. I say that goes for both hot and cold. Just get used to what that temp's going to be like. Mentally prepare yourself for when it's going to be hot. Going back to our first question about what do I buy? I recommend the lightweight pants, warm weather lightweight pants, because you can always put tights on underneath. I would not waste my time if you're a first year official buying warm weather or cold weather pants. I wouldn't mess with it. The equipment we have today with, Under Armour tights or whatever, whatever brand you like is so phenomenal. You can always layer up, or even long johns, if you need to.
Yeah.
But be drinking water, be eating right too. Just because you cut out the beer and soda, I would probably avoid the fast food because that won't sit well on Friday. I don't overcorrect either. This is a complicated answer, but I wouldn't overcorrect either and then try to eat a keto diet for 5 days. That's probably too far. So constant meals that are good, that are fueling your body, getting used to the weather, making sure you're packed properly. So make sure, hey, we're going to wear our short sleeves and I've got my pants. And bring stuff with you. Ryan and I we bring snacks for halftime. I take, if you have a protein bar you like or something like that, or a granola bar, something to eat, put something in your stomach before you go out there too, because it's going to be hot and you need that fuel. And then don't be afraid to. One of the things that I do after I meet my coach, I find out who's my head coach. I find my get back coach, because that's important. Then I have to go find my trainer, just if there's anything that we need to be aware of for players or anything. And I also find them for water. If they're getting water for the teams, ask for water yourself. Don't be shy, because it doesn't do anybody good if the official passes out either. So make sure you're getting water in between breaks. So Ryan, you do anything different?
No, I'll echo a few things there. I have, as long as I've been doing this, I've never bought the cold weather pants for the reason you've said, is that they're such warm, long pants or long leggings or tights or whatever you want to call them from Nike, Under Armour, whatever brand it is. I've never had an issue being cold because of the pants I'm wearing at a football game. So I don't see
usually the face
to spend money there. Yeah, it's the face and the hands.
Face and the hands
that tend to be the issues. In terms of preparing for this week, I'm looking ahead at my schedule. I have a scrimmage Wednesday evening. The high that day is currently forecast to be 96. I have a JV game Thursday evening. The high that day at the moment is forecast to be 99. Our game Friday, the high is forecast to be 94. So as Michael said, I'm cutting it off. There's no beer, none of those kinds of things going on from now until then, just because I can't deal with it. As Michael said, number one, you feel better the next day without it. And as we all we're all getting older, just to be honest with each other.
Father Time is
You know,
undefeated.
that's just that's just a fact of life, and that you feel better regardless. But especially with this stuff coming up, you just can't do it. So it's just water, water, water. Whether it's body armor, Gatorade, something similar to that, getting those things in, but also eating smart. Like Michael said, now is probably not the time to suddenly switch your diet to something that's a drastic change. But being smart. I probably shouldn't eat. I don't eat a lot of fried food, so now is probably not the time for me to eat fried chicken for the next 3 days or something, right?
Right.
It's not going to deal well for me this week, and it's just a matter of being smart with what we're doing, and keeping hydrated. The JV game I'm working Thursday. I'm going to be the referee for that, so I'm going to enforce timeouts so that players and officials can get water as we're going along, right? Because
Right.
nobody wins if players are passing out or officials pass out. That is not what we need. That's not what we want to see. So it's just being smart about how we're preparing, and then how we deal with it during the games and the scrimmages, the practices as well. I'm admittedly a bit anxious about this week, just because there's a lot going on and it looks awfully warm. But I think if we're smart in how we prepare and in how we take care of ourselves during these games and practices, I think we can get through it. And then by next weekend, it looks pretty nice. So that'll be, I guess, our reward for getting through this week.
Good topic. Good question. Yeah. Oh, and if you are usually pretty active, I would also say don't try to be setting, PRs on your, mile times or, marathons, be active, be moving, but,
Right.
but I wouldn't be, if you can run a marathon on a Thursday night before a Friday night game, more power to you. But I cannot.
No, I can't either. To be honest, I can't do it anyway, but certainly couldn't do it between those games.
I did have a thought. I know a lot of us have the watches now, or we have ways to track our steps, step tracker. If you already have, great. If you haven't, I would suggest tracking your steps in a game on a Friday night. See how many steps you
Yeah.
go. Are you going 1,000, 6,000, 10,000, whatever that number is? Figure that out, and then sometime in between Sunday and Thursday, at least 3 times, go that number of steps in a day, just to get your body used to moving that much.
Yeah.
If you're walking, if you're going to walk 6,000 steps in a game, then try to go out and walk 6,000 steps. What is that, like 3 miles? Something like that. But try to go out and walk that a couple times a week. Get used to it. So, sorry, go ahead. Next question, Ryan.
No, that's a good one. I mean, Friday night with all the passing and all the offense we had, I think I was up at about 11,000 steps just for the game, which is about as many as I've ever had for a game, really.
Yeah.
As long as I've been tracking anyway. I probably had a game or two before I had a smartwatch that we may have, that I can think back to.
What did we do before we could track our steps?
All right, so some of the other questions, I think we've covered a lot of these. What are the main mechanics differences between high school and college? We've covered that. Main differences between high school and college, we've done that. So we talked a little bit, I guess, about the new, I guess, in terms of how we're going to deal with the new timing rules. But I have a couple of questions in terms of how the new NCAA timing rules impact you and how you deal with those as line of scrimmage officials. So we've talked about it a little bit, but I guess we cover a little bit more now, Michael.
Like you mentioned earlier, just with the scrimmages, trying to get used to that. I'm always banking that first down line in my head. 42. I have to sometimes say the 52 because I can't think backwards, but whatever that line is, I bank it, and I'm just so used to coming up and stopping the clock, and you just kind of have to break yourself of that habit. I would say if you're, working a game that first Saturday and you come up and kill the clock, don't sweat it. It's the first game of the season. You just wind it again, and I know I'm probably going to do it here in a couple of weeks, but there's no harm. It's going to be a second taken off or a second stop, or, then we're going to get rolling. So I think if you start focusing on that too much, you're going to miss something. You're going to miss a hold. You're going to miss a player safety issue. Or you're going to, not hear coach if he's trying to get your attention for a timeout or something like that, whatever the case may be. Practice it. But at the end of the day, you got to still officiate the game.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the worst thing that could happen if you kill the clock when you're not supposed to is that you immediately have to start the clock. And you always feel badly doing that, but there's no harm, no foul there, really. I mean, it's a momentary stoppage and you get it rolling again. And then we just live to play the next snap. So no
Yeah.
big deal there. But, we've covered it's just being mindful of those differences as well. Um, uh, it's not that great of a difference, really. It's just getting used to it for us. It's like I said, for 56 minutes of the game, there were instances where we used to stop the clock where now we won't be, but we're still going to stop it if it goes out of bounds. We're still going to stop it on an incomplete pass.
Yeah,
It's just
that
if
doesn't
there's a
change.
first down in the field of play, it moves on and the clock keeps rolling. So it is a change. It's going to require us all to be used to it, to be knowledgeable of it. But I don't think this in and of itself really rewrites all that much.
No,
Some of the other proposals, like keeping the clock running after an incomplete pass, that's that's a whole
it's a big
different
change.
thing. But
That's a
but
big
then
change.
that's really on the clock operator. I mean, we wouldn't be we would signal incomplete, but we wouldn't necessarily be killing it or keeping it rolling there. So those are some potential bigger changes coming down the line. But I think we'll get through this one. It just may require a few instances of Michael and I killing the clock and then looking at each other and wanting to kick ourselves and say, nope, need to roll that thing again. And we'll move on and we'll play the next down after that occurs. No big deal. We had another question, Michael, asking us what we're looking for, whether high school or college, if we're looking at DPI or OPI. And we talked about OPI some a little bit earlier as well. But what are you looking for? Particularly, I'll put you in your new hat as a line of scrimmage official in college, at both high school and the college level. What is it that is hand fighting versus a foul for DPI or OPI for you?
Sure. Um, well, when we talked about OPI earlier, the receiver knows where they want to go, and the defender is obviously trying to prevent that. Again, officiate the hands. The thing that I've started to watch is I used to watch the player committing the foul, and now I've transitioned to watching the player being fouled.
Yeah.
It opens up so much more for your world and this can apply to pass interference too. But when you see the player who's being fouled, their body usually changes in some way. There's a dip, or they're going to take that step with their right foot, and all of a sudden that right foot doesn't come along because they got jerked back one way or something, or they're trying to turn and they can't turn. Once I started to watch that action of that player, uh, you know, the foul being committed against, it just changed my world. Specifically from a DPI perspective on a line of scrimmage, anytime there's a crossing pattern, I think your antenna just go up whenever somebody's going to break out of that route. And the nice thing about having a back judge, they'll always have that inside look that you may not have. So don't ever be afraid. There's times where I know in our crew, Daniel's throwing stuff in, and what did you see? And he's like, oh, it was over here, is on the arm on the inside. Cool. I never would have saw that. And I used to get real down in the dumps about not seeing that foul until I realized I just can't. So if you've got kind of that slant route going on the inside or something like that, and there's that tug as a line of scrimmage official, you may not see it. Don't get beat up by it. That's why there's 5 of us or 7 of us or 8 if you're if you're lucky enough. But rely on your crew too to help pick up blind spots, because there's blind spots.
Yeah, I mean, really, what I'm looking for, as Michael said, you're looking at the player being defended, not necessarily the defender in terms of their actions. So,
Yeah.
are the feet being taken away? Is there an unnatural shoulder dip? Right. That's the big thing for me on holds and DPIs as well. Right. If a player has a shoulder that comes down one way or the other that isn't a natural movement that they would be making towards the ball or towards the play they're trying to make,
Sure.
that's a pretty good indication that there's a foul of some sort occurring, whether it be a hold or DPI. If they unnaturally twist right before there's a pass coming at them, and you see a defender's hand on them that's making that twist happen, that's a pretty good indication to me as well that we may have a grab and restrict, or hook and restrict, or hook and turn, something going on there that's not a natural movement that we're going to have there. So really, the thing that really gets my antenna up on those is, do we have an unnatural reaction by either the offensive player or defensive player from the opponent's actions? I know we had a DPI in our game on Friday that our back judge called, and it was a good call. It was early contact through the back, and I was looking at it from about 30 yards away.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And I saw an early wrap up and a shoulder through the back right before the ball got there, and it was absolutely a correct call, and it was a great call by Daniel.
I was way on the other side. I stayed off that. I had no idea.
Yep. I saw it. It was so far downfield, and our back judge was a lot closer and had the flag. But
had a good angle. Yep.
I saw enough once I turned, and he had the right angle. He had the call. So it's those types of unnatural actions. You'll never find the word bang bang play in a rule book or a case book, but a lot of times that's the type of action that we're looking at, that contact occurs right when the ball gets there, and we're going to have a clean play and we're going to move on. But it's that early contact, it's that unnatural, it's that contact that causes some unnatural reaction that's really going to draw a foul from us on those plays. And that's what really gets our attention, at least for me, when I'm looking at that type of a play. Let's see. I think we've gone through most of our questions now. Michael, any that I've missed?
I think that's everything that I saw come through the box. Jenny's been kind enough, for those of you watching this, is Jenny, the wonderful producer who has a fabulous contract that pays her very well, obviously. But we do appreciate Jenny being on here, and it was her lovely voice that you heard do the little PSA a couple days ago. So thanks, Jenny, for anything. Has anything come through the chat on the YouTube side? Nothing? Okay.
Yeah, Jenny's the new star of the show, so I should just give 5 minutes for Jenny to just riff at this point to get our views and our 5-star reviews up, hopefully.
Well, we're right at about an hour, so I think this has been fun. Hopefully everyone watches got something out of it.
It's been fun. We appreciate you all for joining us. I'm sure that there have been some technical issues. I know my Wi-Fi, if I'm looking at my rate, it's not great right now. So Michael's and Jenny's looks better. So if I'm lagging behind, I apologize. Hopefully on the podcast, it will all even out as we go. But we appreciate your patience with us. This is one live stream mailbag episode down. We'll look to do these with some more regularity. I have not had a discussion with Michael yet as to any frequency of this, so I'm not going to say we're going to do this monthly or anything like that, but we'll get this going on some sort of a regular basis so you can talk with us and we can talk with you and have a conversation versus a podcast where we're talking at you more or less, as opposed to talking with you on this type of a live stream. So we appreciate you joining us. If you feel we've made any mistakes tonight, or if you want to discuss anything that we've talked about, please email us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com. You can also contact us there if you're interested in sponsoring an episode or advertising on the show. You can find us on your app of choice or obtain episodes at learnyourstripespodcast.com. Please also follow us on Facebook at Learn Your Stripes Podcast, on Instagram at the same name, or on Twitter at LYS_podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, please tell your friends and rate us 5 stars and leave a review on your app of choice. We'll see you back here soon. In the meantime, keep learning your stripes.
Thank you, everyone.